Hi, I'm Tracy Darnton and I'm the author of The Truth About Lies, which is one of the World Book Night titles. So I thought I'd answer some common questions about it. Yeah, Truth About Lies is a YA memory thriller. So it's about a girl called Jess who has a fantastic memory. Not only does she have a great eidetic or photographic memory and she's great with faces, she has something called hypothymesia or superior autobiographical memory, which means she remembers everything that happens to her on a daily basis from about the age of 11. So I like exploring what that would be like, how much baggage that would give you and that sort of balance between remembering and forgetting. Well, I've always been really interested in memory, so that's a big part of it, and I'm also on a memory research programme for people who are good at recognising faces. To be honest, Jess just popped into my head in a workshop when I was doing an MA in creative writing, and she sort of completely refused to get out of there, so that's how it started. I certainly have an attention to detail and I'm quite comfortable going through the sort of massive document that a book becomes. I've just been doing edits on my latest book, The Rules. I think my editor would agree that I've got quite an eye for detail and I'm a bit of a pedant possibly. And I guess it's also helped with things like contracts and understanding rights issues. And it certainly means that I know how to work really hard and meet a deadline. I'm a pantser desperately trying to become a plotter because I think particularly when you're writing thrillers that have clues that you have to scatter throughout, I think if I could really plan it, that would make a big difference. So please, if somebody knows how to plan thrillers effectively, let me know, because at the moment I'm still sort of doing it by the seat of my pants. I did quite a lot of memory research and I've been able to put some of that into the book. So I've used little exercises and techniques, mnemonics, things like memory palaces, stuff like that I've put in. The setting is Dartmoor, which is one that I'm really familiar with, so I didn't really have to do anything extra for that. My next book is called The Rules. This is actually a proof copy and it builds on a short story which was published in I'll Be Home for Christmas called The Letter. So the character Amber in that letter got lots of nice feedback and I've developed it into a novel. So it's about a girl who is on the run from her prepper father. So she's spent her whole childhood preparing for a disaster like catastrophic climate change or a pandemic. She has to sort of go on the run away from her dad, and yet he's the guy who's taught her everything she knows about staying under the radar. That's coming out in July. And my main writing tip is that you have to read. So you really need to find the time to read loads of books. So I've got a heap of books about memory. These are just a few of them and I thought I'd share some of them as reading recommendations for anyone who's read my book and would be interested in learning a little bit more about memory. So I'm going to start off with this one, which is a Borges short story in here called Funes the Memorious. So this is about 80 years old now, but it's a really classic story and the title character, Funes, is paralysed in a riding accident and it also has the effect of giving him an amazing memory. Like the character Jess in my book, he can remember everything but in absolutely excruciating detail. So there's a lot about the burden of that on him and he invents a whole new vocabulary and way of seeing the world. So it really explores and shows really well that balance for all of us between forgetting and remembering. So that's my first suggestion. And then here's a non-fiction read I really like, and I wish I'd read this before I wrote my book because it has fantastic potted history of memory techniques right through from classical times to the modern day, from Simonides up to the present. And the author in Moonwalking with Einstein was a reporter who went to report on the US Memory Championships, and he set himself the challenge of competing in it the next year. So there's a fantastic load of techniques described in there, like memory palaces, and it's all done in a really engaging and approachable style. So that's another recommendation. And then let's move on to fiction. So we've got The Memory Book by Lara Avery. So that's an American YA book, And I'm not going to lie, this one is quite sad. You will definitely need tissues because the main character has a terrible terminal disease which will affect her memory and give her dementia-like symptoms. So she starts writing the memory book, which is a book to herself that when she knows her own memory won't function very well. So it is a tearjerker, but it's really well written, and I like how the writings also reflected her deterioration over time. And here's another one called We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. This is a really lovely quick read, and this is also set in America, and Cadence holidays every year with her family, her very privileged family, on an island off the coast of Massachusetts. So this is a sort of amnesia thriller because you're not quite sure what has happened to Cadence 2 years prior to her current visit to the island, when she meets up again with the liars of the title. So there's a lot about family, friendship, loss and privilege. I really love that book. And let's have a look. Here's another YA, which is The One Memory of Flora Banks. So this is all about Flora, who has anterograde amnesia, which is same as in S.J. Watson's Before I Go to Sleep. So every day is a new day, and neither of these main characters remember what happened to them the day before. And of course that's a great idea for a thriller because it's working out what is actually happening and who can they trust. So those are a few of my recommendations for memory thrillers. Enjoy reading them. So I thought today I'd share a really quick one about how some people can remember numbers. So our brain responds really well to having weird and wacky images to remember. So if you, in your own time, draw yourself a set of numbers, 0 to 9 like this, in sort of bubble writing, and then you're going to think what each of those numbers suggests to you as a weird object. So, for instance, 0 for me is a donut with pink icing and chocolate sprinkles. 1 is just a pole. 2 for me is a swan, and 3 is a wiggly worm. And then for 4 and 5, I actually use a rhyming idea. So 4 is the door with a letterbox, and 5 is a hive with buzzing bees. So let's say you wanted to remember a 4-digit PIN number that was something like 5420. So I would start with buzzy bees. I'm terrible at drawing, as you can see. Buzzy bees fly through the letterbox of a door, so that's to me number 4. They sting a swan on its beak, and the swan gets in a flap and flies and gets its beak stuck in a donut. So that's how I would remember 5420. Have a go at home, have a go with your letters and see what you can do. And if you want to read some more memory ideas, have a look at The Truth About Lies.